The pursuit of Loki. Knowing that he could now have no hope of being admitted into Asgard again, and that sooner or later the gods, seeing the effect of his evil deeds, would regret having permitted him to roam the world, and would try either to bind or slay him, Loki withdrew to the mountains, where he built himself a hut with 4 doors, which he always left wide open to permit a hasty escape. Carefully laying his plans, he decided that if the gods should come in search of him, he would rush down to the neighboring cataract, according to tradition, the Franinger Force or stream, and changing himself into a salmon, would thus evade his pursuers. He reasoned, however, that although he could easily avoid any hook, it might be difficult for him to effect his escape if the gods should fashion a net like that of the sea goddess Ran. Haunted by this fear, he decided to test the possibility of making such a mesh, and began to make one out of twine. He was still engaged upon the task when Odin, Kvasir, and Thor suddenly appeared in the distance. And knowing that they had discovered his retreat, Loki threw his half-finished net into the fire, and, rushing through one of his ever-open doors, he leapt into the waterfall, where, in the shape of a salmon, he hid among some stones in the bed of the stream. The gods, finding the hut empty, were about to depart, when Kvasir perceived the remains of the burnt net on the hearth. After some thought, an inspiration came to him, and he advised the gods to weave a similar implement and use it in searching for their foe in the neighboring stream. Since it would be like Loki to choose such a method of baffling their pursuit, this advice seemed good and was immediately followed, and the net finished, the gods proceeded to drag the stream. Loki was able to elude the net at first by hiding at the bottom of the river between 2 stones, and when the gods weighted the mesh and tried a second time, he effected his escape by jumping upstream. A third attempt to secure him proved successful, however, for, as he once more tried to get away by a sudden leap, Thor caught him mid-air and held him so fast that he could not escape. The salmon, whose slipperiness is proverbial in the north, is noted for its remarkably slim tail, and those in the north attribute this to Thor's tight grasp upon his foe. Loki's punishment. Loki now suddenly resumed his wanton shape, and his captors dragged him down into a cavern, where they made him fast, using as bonds the entrails of his son Narv, who had been torn to pieces by Vali, his brother, whom the gods had changed into a wolf for the purpose. One of these fetters was passed under Loki's shoulders, and one under his loins, thereby securing him firmly hand and foot. But the gods, not feeling quite satisfied with the strips, tough and enduring though they were, would not give way, changed them into adamant or iron. Thee on a rock's point with the entrails of thy ice-cold son the gods will bind. Seaman Zeta, Thorpe's translation. Skadi, the giantess, a personification of the cold mountain stream, who had joyfully watched the fettering of her foe, subterranean fire, now fastened a serpent directly over his head, so that its venom would fall, drop by drop, upon his upturned face. But Sigyn, Loki's faithful wife, hurried with a cup to his side, and, until the day of Ragnarok, she remained by him, catching the drops as they fell, and never leaving her post, except when her vessel was full, and she was obliged to empty it. Only during her short absences could the drops of venom fall upon Loki's face, and then they caused such intense pain that he writhed with anguish, his efforts to free shaking the earth and producing the earthquakes, which so frighten mortals. Ere they left him in his anguish, o'er his treacherous brow ungrateful, Skadi hung a serpent hateful, venom drops for eye distilling, every nerve with torment filling. Thus shall be in horror languish, by him still unwearied kneeling, Sigyn at his tortured side, faithful wife with beaker stealing. Drops of venom as they fall, agonizing poison all. Sleepless, changeless, ever dealing, comfort will she still abide. Only when the cup's o'erflowing must fresh pain and smarting cause, swift to void the beaker going, shall she in her watching pause. Then doth Loki loudly cry, shrieks of terror, groans of horror, breaking forth in thunder peals, with his writhing sacred earth reels. Trembling and quaking, e'en high heaven shaking, so wears he out his awful doom, until dread Ragnarok to come. Valhalla by J.C. Jones. In this painful position, Loki was destined to remain until the twilight of the gods, when his bonds would be loosed and he would take part in the fatal conflict on the battlefield of Vigrid, falling at last by the hand of Heimdall, who would be slain at the same time. As we have seen, the venom-dropping snake in this myth is the cold mountain stream, whose waters, falling from time to time upon subterranean fire, evaporate in steam, which escapes through fissures and causes earthquakes and geysers, phenomena with which the inhabitants of Iceland, for instance, were very familiar. Loki's Day. When the gods were reduced to the rank of demons by the introduction of Christianity, Loki was confounded with Saturn, who had also been shorn of his divine attributes, and both were considered the prototypes of Satan. The last day of the week, which was held sacred to Loki, was known in the Norse as Laugardag, or Wash Day, but in English was changed to Saturday, and was said to owe its name not to Saturn, but to Satyr, the thief in ambush and the Teutonic god of agriculture, who was supposed to merely be another personification of Loki. So that was The Pursuit of Loki, Loki's Punishment, and Loki's Day, the final sections of Chapter 22 of Myths of the Norsemen by Helene A Guerber, Loki. I will be working my way through this book section by section, and if there are any other public domain books that you would like for me to read, please leave a comment below. Did you enjoy this video? Then subscribe for more, and be sure to check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. Thank you for listening, and have a lovely evening.